Thank you. I guess Beyonce's on the other stage, right? No, I actually said to my 5-year-old son this morning, I said I was a bit nervous about public speaking because I'd not really done it before, but he said that at show and tell, they're supposed to just pretend everyone's a banana. So that's what I'm going to go for today. Thank you very much for coming. I think there is some wine coming around for those that didn't get any on entrance to try either now or later. But my name's Tom Smith. I'm the marketing director of Accolade Wines. And I guess as the title suggests, I'm here to talk about basically how we at Accolade have overcome storms, many storms, in a kind of way where we really have perspective on what the challenges are we're trying to overcome. But then really importantly, how do we add creativity to start driving some of the kind of brand equity and innovation into market that we want to do, and that's what kind of be the interesting bit, I hope. I'm going to base it into 3 sort of sections. So the first I'm going to talk about is more about really understanding where you are and what you're doing and how you pick apart the challenges to begin with. Then it's really the key bit is about understanding who you need to influence, and often it's not who you think it is, and I think that was a key learning for us. And then finally, it's about how do you kind of pull down boundaries and look to really creative measures to kind of overcome that final part of the storm. But before I do that, I will just slightly self-indulgent, and there is a bit of purpose behind this. I do just want to flash this up, and on the big screen it looks slightly daunting, but we at Accolade, especially all of the marketing team, some of which are down here, we have our coat of arms, which is basically represent the 4 images around the outside, basically the 4 things that we're most passionate about. So it's in no particular order, but I have my family, top left, my 2 children. I have bottom left, my local pub, the Shortlands Tavern. So I have a massive passion for food and drink and community. Top right is Sky Sports, and then bottom right is me playing golf and winning a trophy in a field of 4 players. So it was a really big achievement. But really, I know you're not here to listen to my kind of love of golf and other things. I wanted to focus on the bit in the middle. And these are the values. These are the values that I hold dear. And actually, when I was thinking about this presentation, I started to think, well, I quite enjoy a challenge and I quite enjoy stormy environments. And it's probably some of the values that I live by that help me have the ability to kind of work and collaborate and overcome them. So authenticity is just something that's really important to me. I mean, you'll probably realize pretty quickly I have a certain style. I don't really have a secondary style I can lean into. But it's generally stood me in good stead. But I think if you want to have honest and collaborative conversations, you have to be yourself. And I actually think that's really important when you're trying to build relationships and overcoming challenges. The second one, which I can't actually see down there, but I'm thinking is positivity. Is that right? Reliability, that's positivity comes. So reliability in any storm, especially some of the size that we're facing. Can you look to the person next to you and really rely on them? Can they look at you and rely that you're going to be able to do what you say you're going to do when you're going to do it, and in a way that's not going to let anybody down? And for me, that's a kind of a life skill, but I think when you're trying to overcome a storm, an even more important element. Thirdly, he looks about improvement. This is more of a personal one to me, which is very simple, which is more like, am I better today than I was 6 months ago, or can I do something that I couldn't? And a lot of what I'm going to talk to you about, without the kind of stormy scenario and those challenges, I wouldn't have been able to actually improve. Sometimes you actually lean into the challenges and you lean into, you know, the storms and some of the problems that they bring. You actually come out of it with a lot bit more learning. And then find positivity, what I'm very keen on. Negativity in challenging environments just sucks the life out of everything. And you're never going to be able to deliver what you want to deliver going in with a negative mindset. And that's the same for everything, but especially in challenging situations. You have to bring positivity. And it's not about having a blinkered view. For me, it's just really about being pragmatic, but having a positive spin. Understanding what the art of the possible is and thinking about solutions. And then fun is like, storms aren't that fun, but you know, we'll try and have a bit of fun when we can. But that's something I try and live by. And ultimately that ladders up into my purpose, which for me is just about giving people something to smile about, whether that's my family, some of my team, my boss, somebody I bump into, and I'll try and do that today. We've probably got about 15 minutes left, so I'll try and get you all to smile at one point. And if you don't, you've only given up 20 minutes of your day and you get a free bottle of wine, so you know, it's not too bad. Secondly, before I get on to the key content of the presentation, probably nobody knows who Accolade Wines is. I didn't before I took a job there, but I did know the brands. So we're the biggest wine company in the UK. We have a massive footprint across Europe. Hopefully you're familiar with some of the kind of leading wine brands they have there, everything from Hardy's, which is now the 5th biggest alcohol brand in the UK, to people's favourites like Lambrini and Echo Falls, and then we have some key, yes, Maggie's favourite. And then we have a couple of key which are really helping us drive growth in Mudhouse and Jamshed, some of which are actually available here today. But we sell about 180 million bottles of wine a year in the UK. Like I said, we're the biggest supplier and have the biggest footprint. And we have a really good core business, much of which is driven by that. But the bit I'm going to come on to and talk about is really about innovation. This is props up our business and is really cool. But actually what we need to do as a business is drive a whole new kind of generation or recruitment into the category, because wine is getting left behind in terms of fun and excitement, the other drinks categories. So hopefully what I come on to show you will hopefully demonstrate a little bit more excitement. So getting on to the stormy situation. I say if you do a drinking game, every time I say storm, you'll be very drunk. So the first time, I will try and not make this too boring, because wine is very complicated kind of industry to work in. But if I go back to about a year ago, the first of the storms that really started hitting our category and our industry started to come. That was when we started getting signs of the real inflation that was going to hit our industry. And the biggest one of that was the cost of glass. The increase of cost of glass has gone up about 80%, which when you're dealing with £5 products is actually, quite substantial. So we already had an eye on that, which was going to be massively impactful. We had a huge amount of supply chain challenges in wine. As a very wise man that sat down there once said to me, you can't just turn the tap on. When you're dealing with agricultural products, when a bit of rain in the wrong place at the wrong time can really bugger up your whole supply chain, it's a really volatile environment. So we had lots of supply challenges at source. We then had the lack of ability to bring it into the country, because there were all ships weren't leaving on time and in the right place. Everyone remember the Suez Canal bit as well? Never have I been so invested in a boat before than when that was like plugged into a canal, not letting anything pass. And then on top of that, when it got to the UK, we had no truck drivers to move it around. So like a lot of FMCG businesses who were facing some of the challenges, it actually wasn't one storm we were in. It was a multiple of storms. And then just to top it all off, when we thought we had our planning right, the government then announced a new duty regime, which is basically, as of the 1st of August this year, is going to add about 53p onto a bottle of wine. So all of a sudden, unfortunately, wine is going to get a little bit more expensive. Now, we have some mitigation strategies, which I'm not going to go into today. But the point around this, and not all storms being equal, we really needed to actually step back and look at all of the challenges and look at everything holistically. Had we just targeted dealing with one factor, the supply chain challenge or the inflation challenge, we would have dealt with that problem, and then the next day there would have been another problem. So actually we need to start planning when was the impact of these problems going to hit us, and a lot of it was spanning over 6 to 9 months, and actually it goes to 12 months when we have the duty piece. So really here is the reason I'm talking about having perspective. It's like not to rush in and try and solve a problem. We're always probably quite solutions driven. I certainly am. But sometimes you actually need to step back, have a bit of perspective, and go, okay, right, there is a storm, but there's another storm next week, there's another one next month, and there's another one in 6 months, and by the way, in 12 months, there's that really big one. So actually, this kind of thunderous, mountainous storm that we were embarking on actually had to redefine our whole kind of pricing and brand strategy as a business. But we needed to kind of do that, and we needed to understand all of the elements of those varying storms to be able to achieve that. So that's my point here, is about really understanding the situation you're in, when it's going to come, and then not rushing. And I think that's really key. Again, you rush to solutions mode and you fix something, and then the next day something else happens. So have a perspective, don't rush, and then the other thing is really plan well. Really plan out what you're going to need to do, what you need to achieve, who you're going to need to influence at those different times in order to have a success. So part 2 really is about understanding the needs of. I've put a picture of air up there so everyone thinks, oh, this could get interesting. It will become relevant, I think, in a minute. Understanding the needs of. Now, I don't know where everybody works in the audience. You could be agencies, you could be brands, you could be somewhere else. So I'll try and kind of give this a bit more of a holistic view. But identifying who you need to influence. Now, normally in FMCG, as with many things, it's always with the consumer. I mean, you've been at a 3-day festival, right? So I don't know how many times you've heard the word audience, millennials, Gen Z, recruitment, all of this sort of stuff. And of course, like, we need to always have the consumer front of mind. That's how we build our brands. We're building to target certain consumers. But in this environment, whilst they're the endpoint, they weren't the key point of influence. They're the ones that go into store and pick up our brands, but it's our customers. It's our customers that are one that put those products on shelf. So they were really the focus that we needed to actually target. So you understand it's the customer in this environment, in this situation, that was going to be most important. When I'm talking customer, I'm talking Tesco, Asda, all of the big major malts in this example. So then it's about, well, actually, we have all the consumer needs at mind because that's how we build our brands, but what are the customer needs at the specific? So for us, it was really about knowing what the likes of Tesco and those guys needed. What was going to be most important for their wine category? What did they need on shelves that was going to let them bring shoppers in and sell more wine? They don't really care whether they're selling Accolade brands or anyone else's, right? They just want to be selling wine. So that was the first bit. It was about identifying that. And then secondly, it was then pulling on what strengths we had. Were we able to tick off the customer needs? Because that was going to be our route to get our brands where we needed to be. And then it comes to pulling on our strengths. And our strengths, in this example, hopefully highlighted in slide 2, I think it was, is our portfolio. So we have a really great portfolio of brands. And actually, since I joined Accolade, it's something that I've pushed up quite against. We've got too many brands. We can't have focus. There's too much going on. It's all confusing. But God, in the last year, did we need a load of brands. Because what all of our brands gave us, and within any given brand, there's also multiple tiers of price points and countries and red, whites, rosés, all the thing you can come to expect. What it gave us was options. And what it gave our customers was options. So we were allowed ourselves to then know what the customers needed to do, know that they needed to hit certain price points to please their bosses. Our wine buyers, you know, they ladder into the BWS category, who ladder into grocery, etc. So we were able to provide the right portfolio that was going to hit the key things that they needed to do in the category. And quite frankly, in this example was generally, can you help us out with entry-level pricing? In all of this thing, somebody being able to come into our supermarket and buy a wine at £5, £5.50 is really important. And because of the strength of our portfolio, we were able to do that. So we were able to quickly understand their needs and deliver against their needs. So then we were kind of able to start leveraging what we wanted to do a little bit more. And what we want to do isn't at odds with the customer. And I think the interesting thing in wine is, probably more so than any other category, is that the customer in this sense is actually your friend, because they have a load of own label wine. They're trying to sell wine as well. They're seeing all the same problems we have of not being able to get wine on boats and the cost of glass and all of these different things. So you create a little bit of community amongst yourselves there, where you're still going to have that friction in terms of a customer-supplier relationship, but you've got common ground, you've got challenges that you're trying to overcome. And that's the other thing about storms, it's like you've got to find your friends. You're generally not going to be the only people facing into stuff. Nearly went sweary then, but I won't, but facing into stuff. So you don't just identify who it is you need to influence, it's like who's your friends going to be and how can we work together. And actually, as part of all this, there are a lot of challenging conversations, the customer is also the friend. So we've kind of have a little bit of perspective about what we wanted to do. We understand the storms, we understand when we needed to do it. We then really identified and planned and identified that our customers in this scenario was going to be really, really important. We were able to pull on our strengths in terms of our strategy and our brands. But what we've been really working hard at Accolade and what we want to be known for and famous for is driving recruitment in the category. The wine category is pretty boring and has been pretty boring. It's getting left behind by spirits and beers and other categories. So really, we had innovation that we wanted to get into market, and this was a storm that we were able to leverage in order to do that, because we've already met some of the customer needs. So now we were able to go in and leverage some of the stuff we want. And that was really about innovation. And we worked tirelessly at Accolade to try and bring in more people to the wine category, try and make wine more interesting, try and create more brands like you get in other categories, try and drive loyalty. We've got some brands that have already done an amazing job at that, but the wine category needs more of that in order to succeed. So that's what we did. We have launched, if you look at the 4 wines on the left in glass bottles, we've launched 4 new brands in a year. So we had already started developing some of these, and we'd planned like a bit of a longer launch and what we were going to do and plan here. But we had 4 new wine brands we were going to take to market, and we were able to get into those customers and get scale and get early. we really had to think differently about our strategy, and it was really the strength of our portfolio that allowed us to really leverage some of this new innovation to market, and a huge amount of work from everybody to fast track it, get it available, and make sure that we could do it under the guise of the storm that we were in. And we'll touch on these briefly, some of which are available at all good drinks vendors at the festival, I believe. The first one being Wise Wolf. So, God, they look good on big screen as well, don't they? First one, Wise Wolf. So this is hopefully you'll agree, and there are bottles actually in all the bars, so please go and have a look for yourself. Nothing looks like this on the shelves in wine. There is no wine that looks like this. So the first thing you have to do as marketeers, right, how are you going to create a bit of interest on a shelf that's quite boring? How are you going to get people to maybe stop and think about something that's new and interesting? So really passionate about this. It's made from 100% post-consumer recycled glass. It's got a brilliant story behind it. Historically, we've been a new world wine business, which is, Australia, New Zealand, and this is French wine, obviously, as part of the carbon footprint of it. We wanted to bring in wine as close to home as possible. And all of my team and people are brilliant people that have built this brand based on a load of great sustainability credentials. But I actually just think it's a really bloody cool looking bottle, and people will be proud to pick it up and serve it to your friends. And sometimes you can have all the substance in the world, but sometimes you just need an aesthetic that's going to be really good and really different. And that's what I believe this does. So that was the first brand we did. Dynamite Factory in the middle. This is a South African brand. A little kind of insider tip, if you're looking for good quality wine at a slightly more affordable price, hit up your South Africa part of the category. Brilliant wines come from there. But this was born out for a need of that category getting a bit tired, and South African wine not really having much new news, not really having much excitement. So again, we had a winery based over in South Africa that was actually built on an old dynamite factory, hence the name. So we've got, again, substance and story. You see, I'm trying to build brand like you would in other categories. So Dynamite Factory was launched, very impactful packaging. Again, looks different to everything on shelf. Really hit a customer need in terms of trying to bring some excitement to South African wine. We've got Be Inc, which you've either got, tasted, or grab. I mean, I think we're anticipating more people, so grab like 20 each on your way out. Be Inc was, again, filling a specific gap in Australian wine that we needed to fulfill in terms of a certain price point, and is actually, we've managed to get into, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Tesco, Sainsbury's, Asda, Morrison's. We're in the lot. So already what big scale of this brand, and really we've, again, just tried to do something a bit different. It might not look revolutionary to a lot of people, but in wine, just a slightly cooler looking label, trying to bring a bit more dynamic to design, trying to bring a bit more standout on shelf is something that category needs. But really with this one as well, it's the wine, which I hope you all agree, as long as it's not too hot, that will get people to come back. If you like red wine and you taste this, you'll come back for more. So we'll try and bring people in with a bit of aesthetic and a nice brand story, and then we'll try and develop that repeat purchase with a great tasting wine. And then Cupiolo, again, differentiated bottle, looks different to all the other rosés. I'm sure there's lots of rosé drinkers. We haven't got that one here with us today, but it's available in Tesco as of last month. Again, we have got a footprint now which we didn't have, and we've brought this rosé in from Italy. We know that French rosé is massively popular, but we really think this can be a competitor to that. Again, a very, very cool and differentiated looking bottle that we think people are going to be proud to pick up and serve at home and share with their friends. And again, the wine really delivers. So 4 brands launched in a year, all doing different things, hoping to bring in new wine drinkers. And by the way, new wine drinkers in wine doesn't mean Gen Z. We're not just trying to go after the teenagers, right? I'll take a 60-year-old new wine drinker if they want to start drinking wine. It's really trying about making wine for everybody, but making it more accessible. And then finally, and there'll be somebody very pleased that I'm going to talk about wine, boxed wine in my team. Someone said to me not so long ago, if wine was invented now, it probably wouldn't be in a glass bottle, and you probably wouldn't need an instrument to open it. We kind of got over the instrument to open it bit by doing screw caps many years ago, which was met with a lot of trepidation at the time. Boxed wine is the same quality of wine. It will last longer. It's a lower carbon footprint, it's more recyclable, and has all of these credentials, and yet there still seems to be these slight barriers of consumer perception of like what our parents, or probably for some of you, grandparents, used to bring back from France. We've got to dispel these myths. As I said to you right at the beginning, one of the big challenges wine faces is the increased cost of glass, probably the same for a lot of beer and all the other companies. Boxed wine, I really do believe, if we can start breaking down those barriers and misconceptions, really can be the future of wine. And we've got an example there of Jamshed. All of these brands you saw here, we were able to use as leverage and get into store because we were able to deliver against those customer needs on our core portfolio. So yes, we took a very challenging time. We found solutions. We built brands. We innovated. We sold the dream to our customers. We sold it internally. Internally, everyone got behind all of these new launches and new brands. And we were adaptable. I can't stand here hand on heart and say all of these are going to sell millions and million cases over the next year. They might all do, they might one do, but quite frankly, we need to just keep pushing. We need to keep bringing exciting news to the category, and we need to keep innovating. And we do that at Accolade, and I actually call on everybody in the drinks industry, but especially wine, keep bringing new news and keep bringing new excitement because it's really important. So that was really the crux of it. 3, I guess, takeouts, hence linking back to the title. Storms don't just come as once. There's many, many clouds and many different challenges on the way. So you will never be able to ride a storm without getting wet, but face into it with perspective. You won't be getting wet on your own unless you've got a really big umbrella. Like, you're going to have people that are going to be in the same boat as you. So where possible, how do you pull on those commonalities and actually drive some common ground and get some results off the back of that? And finally, which is a quote I heard, which I really, really loved, which was, you got to stop waiting for the sun to appear and learn how to dance in the rain. And for me, that's the whole point of overcoming challenges. It's about trying to embrace them, trying to employ the right behaviours, trying to employ the right tactics, enjoying the ride, having perspective, and seeing where you get to and doing your best. So I think that was it from me. Thank you very much. I hope it's not been too whiny and you found it interesting. But that's it. Thank you very much.